Hey, kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to another edition of Big Hearing News. Kia ora Chewy. How are you, sir?
Good evening, Pat.
Well, good evening to you, my friend. And I love to count. How are you, man? What's going on?
Yeah, not too bad. Enjoying the last of the good weather that we'll see for a little while, I think.
Yeah, I've got a bit of a report on that. To be fair with you, the cold weather is coming back to the deep south for a weekend. Often happens that you'll get a snow flurry, sort of in spring and in autumn. There's those days. We've got that day coming up this week. In fact, we have a bunch of firewood that we all stacked up and we put in boxes and we got it ready to use. And we're like, oh. We've kind of got ready to do something there, and then we're going to use it this weekend, so it's going to be a cool one. I've actually got a bit of a weather report for the country that we're going to do as part of this introduction. But yes, there is a cold one coming. I believe Friday's high in Dunedin is only going to be 3 degrees, and they're saying there could be snow to sea level, which is always fun. We love a snow day here in Dunedin. I don't know how you feel about them, Chewy, but we love a snow day.
I love a snow day. Little dog Ilva loves the snow also, but has short legs, which makes it very entertaining.
Does that mean she kind of drives through nose first like a snow plow? How does that work?
Yeah, or she just gets stuck, which is it's great for me either way.
So I think we've probably talked about this before, so not to labour a point, but people who don't know Dunedin, Dunedin's a bit like Wellington. People who don't know Wellington. It's that there's hill suburbs and the city's sort of down on the flat. So when a snow day comes, even if it's just in the hills, the city tends to stop because, of course, all the workers down on the flat can't get to work because they're up in the hills in the snow. So it's kind of a bit of I don't know, people kind of get out and about when they can and they do stuff and, they go out and get hot chocolate and becomes a winter wonderland for like 12 hours, and then it's back to the slimy grind the next day. Is that fair?
Yeah, pretty much. That's almost bang on. I think Facebook reminded me of the last spring snowstorm, and it was literally a day.
All right.
And then we were back to work the next day.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, this is what we're talking about. This is from One News. Temperatures to plummet as sea level snow forecast for the south. Maybe spring, but there is a heavy snow and cold temperatures in the forecast for South Island areas of Southland, Clutha, Dunedin, Central Otago, Southern Lakes, Thursday into Friday. Lighter snow is possible to sea level. And there's the little picture there that says the yellow one is snow. And you can see here, snow in the south, and then heavy rain on the west coast. It's going to be interesting, actually. It's due to kick in. We were looking at the greenhouse because we've got plants inside, plants outside, and we're like, about 5 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, that's when the temperature is going to plummet, and it's going to be like that for the next sort of 48 hours. So yeah, that's what we've been doing. Something else to say is we're also, I think, live on TikTok right now. I'm just looking up at the TikTok screen. I think we're live up on TikTok. Oh, I can see Elva on TikTok and her little legs. There you go. What kind of dog is it again? I always forget the name. Breed?
Swedish Velhund.
And they're like a cross between, a pit bull and a bulldozer. Is that right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. If you give a corgi a can-do attitude and a step ladder and a willing Alsatian, then they're all good.
There you go.
That is not how that works, by the way.
Lots going on tonight. Probably, I think the highlight for most people, it'll be where we play you a bit of a clip from Bombers podcast last night, where Mr. Hooton was talking about how National's going to fuck over act. Literally, it's the words he uses. I'm going to fuck you fast or fuck you slowly, but however that happens, I'll fuck you over. So I'm quite looking forward to showing you guys that if you haven't quite seen it yet. Also, we're going to be having a little look at Christopher Luxon today, talking about what they're going to do in the first 100 days of gangs. And also a look at one of the news stories from tonight about this inquest into the Christchurch massacre. Nothing good comes out of that inquest, but they need to figure it out. And there's some, interesting news. I don't know if it's interesting or shocking or good or bad. Well, not good news coming out that there was a precursor to the Prime Minister's office only 7 minutes before it happened. But the terrorist sent an email to the Prime Minister's office, and it wasn't actioned quickly enough, but there was someone from her office on the phone as the terrorist was entering the mosque.
Oh, so Jesus.
I know it's an interesting thing to figure out, and we'll talk more about it when I show you the clip. But I just had a look at my email. I've got 10,356 unread emails in my inbox right now. Now, obviously, most of them are like, here's your here's your Sky Sport, and I don't open those up, sort of thing. But imagine how many the Prime Minister gets. It actually feels like to me that even to get to see the email and action it to the police within that kind of 5 to 7 minutes is a pretty, I don't want to say it's an impressive result. I don't want to make it sound like it's okay, but you know what I mean? I mean, how many emails are we flooding in per hour? And so we'll have a look at that. We'll leave the thoughts up to you as to whether you think the response was appropriate or not. It feels to me like maybe a bit of a failing of the police rather than the PM's office, but we'll have a look at that as we go through. I wanted to show you one other thing, and we're not really talking Israel-Gaza tonight so much, but I did want to show you a quick video clip because we've talked a little bit, and we played that piece from Cenk Uygur last night. You know, and I know he said something really obvious, but sometimes it's good to hear where he goes, bombs kill people. And we were talking about, you know, apartment blocks, pancaking and that sort of stuff. Here is a quick video of a journalist in Gaza with a drone reporting some of the destruction. So he's standing in the middle of it, and this kind of gives, it can never give context. Like I always find smell is quite often a really important contextual thing that is a memory thing. So all this is the pictures, but even the pictures are quite shocking. And you'll see what we were talking about the other night when we talked about how much of Gaza is being flattened. Have a look at this.
And I will show you the massive destruction that happened to the Zahra city in the middle of the strip. More than 14 residential towers got destroyed by the Israeli airstrikes. Imagine how many people have been homeless and lost their places. Like Gaza need a new Nakba.
So without knowing too much, I mean, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe 10 apartment buildings there in this drone shot, just gone. Possibly all would have been filled with people, you know, and this is just one area. There were some reports I heard that said 95%, this maybe is one of them, but 95% of some, you know, living spaces, living areas, citizens' areas have been razed to the ground. So it brings a context, Chewy. I guess that's all I'm saying for people to know.
Oh, absolutely. And look, my partner and I were just watching a video about the tunnel networks in Gaza, and I knew a little bit, but certainly not loads. But apparently, tunneling in Gaza goes back to it's been a tactic for centuries.
Yeah.
Even against Alexander the Great, which I didn't know about. But in this video that we watched, there was this shot of just showing how dense Gaza City can be.
Yeah.
And if you're firing
per square meter, well, like the densest, if not one of the densest populated areas in the world.
Yeah, it's up there. Yeah. Because there is no green space, and like one of the things that the Israelis will talk about, and in some aspects it's of course true, is that weapons and supplies for Hamas are coming through those tunnels. What this video did is go on to explain that's not the only thing that comes in through the tunnel network. Food, fuel, construction materials, all of that comes in through the tunnel network. So yeah, it's basically the economic driving factor of the entire place is tunneling, and a lot of it is because of Hamas. But the side benefit is it's how a lot of things get in and out of Gaza.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not clean cut as much as people want it to be clean cut. It's not. The channel that I got this video from, you can see there, is called Task and Purpose. It's their latest video. If you'd like to know more about the tunnel network, I'd absolutely recommend it. I'll put a link in the chat.
Cool. Yeah, I'm just looking. Guru also says this. I saw this today. Check out Piers Morgan's interview with rapper Low Key. It's really interesting. Low Key basically accuses Piers Morgan of being a welcoming place for people who are committing atrocities or who agree with atrocities, and being a place that challenges people like him who are taking, for want of a better word, the side of Gaza. and putting pressure on those people. I did see that, Guru. I was actually going to play it tonight because we kind of featured an interview or part of an interview with Piers Morgan last night, but I haven't brought it in for tonight. But yeah, he basically in 3 minutes just destroys Piers Morgan, and Morgan's got no response for it, because there is still that commentary coming out about how the media is treating the story as well. Maybe I will show you this. There was one other. I pulled away. Oh, there's the low key one right there. I could play that if you want to. I was going to play one other thing, and I chose not to. Only really because of time. But I'll show you this. You've seen the 85-year-old grandmother that's been released from Hamas is released. She gave an interview, and in the interview, she said that they were treated very well, and that they got their needs, etc., etc. Have a listen.
Question is, why did you shake that Hamas activist hand when you crossed? Because they treated us very nicely.
Treated us very nicely.
My mom is saying that they were very delicate and gentle with them and took care of all their needs.
Took care of all their needs. Now, look, I'm not doing this to defend Hamas. I don't want to do that. But the point that this tweeter sort of said, this is Alan McLeod, was listen to Israeli prisoner's words and then look how the BBC presented her story to the world. The BBC's headline is, "I went through hell," says 85-year-old hostage and peace activist. Now, she might have said that as well, but it is interesting to see if you've got an option. Remember we did that word cloud with Jacinda Ardern, and they picked 3 words that were there that were negative, but they were the 3 of the smallest words. It's like when the media has an opportunity to paint a narrative, much of the mainstream media seems to be painting the narrative of Israel good, Hamas or Gaza bad at the moment. And there's an example of it. I mean, she probably did say, "I went through hell," but she also said they were kind and they were gentle and they looked after her needs. And that was the headline that the BBC chose to run with. So, I'll put us in that camp as well. We have a bias. We have our own kind of blind spots and stuff. So treat us with a grain of salt. But at least I'm being honest with you about that when I say treat all media with a grain of salt. Treat some of them with more than others, but treat all of them with a grain of salt. And what we'll always try and do, and this is my pledge to you, we'll always try and at least show you the evidence for what we're talking about. Now, we might be wrong sometimes, we might be right other times, but we'll always endeavour to at least cite our evidence and show our workings, Chewy.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I noticed fans of the show, Chippy and Nanaya Mahuta, took our advice from last night's show. Did you see that?
Haven't.
There's a statement out from the government as far as Israel and Gaza goes.
New Zealand calls for humanitarian pause in Gaza. Chris Hipkins says all parties must demonstrate basic humanity. Easy. Yeah, absolutely. Not. I mean, if a political
controversial.
Entity, that's the thing. If a political entity believes it needs to stay neutral, that's the way they've just done it. I'm not saying we need to be neutral or not. You might definitely be on one side or the other. But if a political entity needs to be neutral, there's a perfect wording of a way to say, okay, stop all the shit, without saying you're right, you're wrong. And I get that has to happen at a geopolitical level sometimes. And it's much better than nothing. Interesting that Christopher Luxon hasn't come out saying anything yet, I assume, like anything as an official capacity as the incoming Prime Minister.
I mean, I don't know the mechanics of it. I think it would have been nice if it was a joint statement.
I wonder if they gave him the option.
Yeah. As I said, I don't know what's appropriate, like diplomatically for something like that, but yeah, just man on the street, Chewy reckons it would have been a nice show of unity.
Now, speaking of Luxon, before we get into our first story, let me just remind you all, you fabulous people, that we have got a merch drop on for the next about 8 days. And then all the stuff goes, well, the BHN stuff stays, but the special stuff goes away. Our topical gear at the moment is bottom feeder gear. You can wear a bottom feeder rust hoodie or a bottom feeder tan hoodie or a bottom feeder black hoodie, or the same rust, tan, and black t-shirts. There's a bottom feeder on the front and BHN on the back, and of course there is our general BHN gear as well. If you want to get some of that, help support the channel, then head to bhnshop.nz. That is the best way to do it. And I was thinking, Chewy, maybe we'll give our TikTok followers, and there's people watching us on TikTok right now. Hi TikTok, We'll do a Fortnite dance for you shortly. Maybe we'll give you guys on TikTok a special discount code tomorrow. Maybe I'll do like a clip from the show, and in the front of it I'll do a TikTok special for, I don't know, 20 people or something like that, to give you a discount. But anyone else, I probably shouldn't have said that because now other people will be waiting. If you want to pick it up during the show, we'll give you a shout out. bhnshop.nz. We don't do the business thing very well, do we, Chewy? I should shut up.
No, we're big businessmen.
Hey, good segue. Speaking of big businessmen.
Oh, it's daddy business.
Daddy business. We're going to have a look at daddy business from breakfast this morning, and this is our favourite. What's the name of the host again? Anna Burns Francis, because she's wearing her glitch top. You know, the glitch top that looks like, because of the stripes, it looks like she's a Minecraft character glitching. You'll see. There's only one part I really want to play about this, because we have some receipts when it comes to this conversation, and that's what Christopher Luxon is going to do with the national government in their first 100 days on gangs in particular. What they're going to achieve, how they're going to achieve it, and who they absolutely refuse to work with. I bet you can guess who it is, Chewy, but we'll let the man himself tell us. So here's Anna Burns Francis in her glitch jersey, looking and speaking to Mr. Luxon on the first 100 days, what they're going to do with gangs.
Okay, what are you going to do about gangs in your first 100 days?
Yeah, well, look, we've been very clear in the election campaign and in the 18 months before that about gangs, and it's been good to see, for example, the police using some of the powers that have been recently passed, in Apotiki in particular, this week. And again, we want to make sure we get more of those tools to the police, so they've got more powers to be able to do that.
So what
dispersal powers
for the first 100 days?
To get going with the legislation that we promised around tackling gangs. And that
so just for clarity, see, there's the glitch top. Just for clarity, the commitment is we'll start something. And I'm actually okay. I think those 100-day things are bloody stupid, but they made a big deal of their 100-day plan before they were elected, and now the payoff to the 100-day plan is we'll do something. We'll start something. That's our commitment.
To get going with the legislation that we promised around tackling gangs, and that means getting that up and running. So
you were quite specific in your 100-day plan. You were going to ban gang patches.
Correct. Give dispersal powers, anti-consorting, make sure that firearm prohibition orders, and also an aggravating factor in sentencing. How are you going to stop gang offenders from communicating with one another in the first 100 days?
Yeah, that's a good question, Because there's this new invention, Chewy, called cell phones. Have you ever heard of them?
I'm familiar.
No, they're quite new. And so they're going to stop somehow. They'll just make sure that, because only a few people have cell phones, they're very new technology. So I'm sure what they'll do is just make sure that gangs don't get their hands on cell phones to stop them communicating with one another. It's highly likely because no one's got cell phones yet. It'll be in the next few years. You mark my word,
They're notoriously hard to get.
Yeah, they are notoriously hard to get.
And we're going to start drafting that legislation, getting that legislation up and running in that first 100 days so that police can then operationalise that and move it forward. The law.
You're going to need the support of other parties to do that.
Sure.
If you are waiting till the special votes are in, you haven't got 100 days left.
Well, we'll have 100 days once our government's formed, and that's when we're going to get going. We're going to run Parliament right up until Christmas. We may start Parliament earlier in the new year as well, because that's actually what the rest of New Zealand does. And I think that's important given the agenda that we've got to get moving with. So we've got a lot to do.
How do you practically expect that enforcement to go when it comes to banning gang patches, for example?
Question.
Well, look, again, that's going to be up to the police. But I'll just say to you in Queensland...
Okay, so this is a really important point, I think, Joey. How are you going to do this? How are you going to legislate it? I don't know. We'll let the police handle that. So what happens, and we've got Chester Burrows, the late, great Chester Burrows, coming up shortly to share some of his words from trying to do this before. What happens if what they're promising is illegal? Like the right to assemble, or like the freedom of expression. What if what they're promising is illegal? Now, I'm not saying this is illegal. I'm saying, what if it is illegal? He's just been asked, okay, so this is your promise to ban gang patches. How are you going to do it? Nah, we'll leave that up to the police, Chewy.
People seem to forget as well that the Mugger Mob have lawyers, that they can afford lawyers. And they'll take the Crown to court over it. And they'll win. They'll win. It's so stupid. Like, okay, you can't wear gang patches. Okay, well, we'll wear something else to designate what gang we're in.
Maybe red or blue?
We're going to clean the warehouse out of red hoodies.
Yep.
Now what?
Yeah.
Red jackets, red shoes. It doesn't need to be a patch. It's any symbol. They could decide that the sign for being in our tough gang is a Dora the Explorer backpack, and everyone has one. It does not matter what it is. It's so dumb. It's so dumb.
Okay, we'll keep going with Mr. Luxon. We'll give him maybe he'll do a some sort and he'll pull it off. He'll win it by the end of this conversation, Tribby. Maybe. What do you think? Maybe. We'll see.
Land in Western Australia, where these rules and laws have been passed and been very effective, actually passed by Labor premiers of those respective states. We've seen great success, and so we'll leave that to police. But it's no different from how we ban.
If that's your rule that you want to bring in, you must have an expectation of how you think it would play out.
Yeah, that's the other thing. We'll leave it to police. And this is your idea. What are you going to do? I mean, literally, it's we want this to happen. We want you guys to sort it out. Imagine, this is the businessman, right? We run it like a business. What business has a CEO that goes, right, I want to make sales hit this point. I want this many sales. How are you going to do it? Well, we'll leave it up to them. That's not how business works. Yet the man who wants to run government like business is going, we want this done. I don't know. Let them sort it out. It makes no sense at all. And we've been saying this for 18 months, Whānau, and people haven't caught on to it. And the more we get into government, the more these guys get into government, I think the clearer you will see it. And the clearer you will see their promises from the election not pan out either because they can't get them through or they're not able to do them, in my opinion, Chewy.
3 years have I told you so, starting now.
How we ban gang patches, for example, in courtrooms and schools or in hospitals today. It's the same thing, right? It's just an extension of that into public places. Dispersal powers, giving police the powers to break up gangs of intimidating behaviour, anti-consorting powers, and obviously firearm prohibition orders to go after illegal guns.
Have you spoken to Andrew Coster about these plans?
No, not personally.
Head of police? No.
Do you think you should?
Well, no, we're not yet a government. And so the point is that we have a situation in New Zealand where we now have to form a government. Once we form a government, that will be up and running.
Sound them out a bit, because these are plans that you want to bring in.
Yeah, look, I think we've been really clear over the campaign. We launched over 60 different...
So Anna Burns-Francis missed the obvious question here, unfortunately. These are plans you want to bring in. What if you can't? What if legally you can't do this? Then what? That's the obvious question here. What if Peter Costa, I think that's his name, says, no, we're not going to do that? Then what? Because if you're saying it's up to the police, that means the police can go, no, we don't think that's a good idea. Unless it's up to the government, then what are you going to do? I don't know. We'll leave it to the police. The police go, this is not possible or legal. Then what? These are these big promises that we'll have to see whether they can pan out or not.
It's just the mechanics of it, right? We've talked about this before. It's the bumper sticker. We're going to be tough on gangs. We're going to get rid of gang patches right there. But it doesn't go further about how. Are they going to ask police to physically take patches off gangs?
Yeah, go into funerals and do it, remember? To get a group and go into funerals and take them off.
Yeah, Kiwi Skirt's got it exactly right. None of that explains on how they are going to get rid of patches on streets. Are they going to issue fines? At what point is the illegal gang going, yeah, sure, I'll pay that fine. Who gives a shit? Fuck off. It's a bumper sticker with nothing behind it.
There's one more part of this interview I want us to get to, and that's also who they refuse to work with. And once again, National's big promises have backed them into a corner that even if they could get this through, maybe they can, it will be less effective by them ruling out talking to a particular group of people about gangs.
Policies, and I think if you're a CE of a government department, you'd be looking at those what we want to propose and what we're going to do.
Okay, we had Harry Tam on yesterday, and he talked about pro-social interventions, what else needs to be done. He said that he would consider meeting with you if you were willing to meet with him. Would you meet with Harry Tam?
No interest, really. My message really clearly is if you want to leave a gang, that's good. We encourage you to do that. Life for gang members is going to get harder under a national government. We've been really clear and upfront about that. Gangs are not good.
Really clear,
they want
really
all the
clear,
rights of
really
being
clear.
Kiwi, not prepared to take the responsibilities, and they peddle a lot of misery across this country in terms of the drug trade.
Do you believe in any pro-social interventions to stop people joining gangs in the first place?
Well, I do. I think there's a lot that we can do around social investment, which we've talked about. Getting to underlying causes and working on that around poverty issues, housing security issues, education.
And if Harry wanted to work with you on that, you wouldn't want to work with him?
No, I don't, because I actually want to say to people very clearly, gang life is not a good choice, and actually there's nothing good about gang life. in my view. So
what the hell does that mean?
I know I'm talking bluntly about it,
Yeah.
but it's important because actually, when we look at the growth of gangs, we look at the growth of violent crime in this country, and we look at what's happening with meth and drugs. That's the reality of it.
So I guess that's kind of implying that every gang member is a bad person, right?
No, I'm just saying that gangs are not great. And
so how do you work out what those pro-social interventions are if you won't talk to them about what they think they need?
Well, I think we all understand we've got a long, ongoing program of making sure that we can actually, through our social investment model, make sure that we're actually helping families and vulnerable folk that might be attracted to that lifestyle with respect to poverty, around housing, around education, all those other options. And we've got to work much harder at that. And that's hard work, it's long-term work. We're going to continue to do that. But on top of that, we are also going to have tougher consequences for it. I'm going to send another message, which is to say, if you're a gang member, leave. There
you go. Now, sorry about that, Joe. I know you were trying to jump in there, but I just wanted to...
I've got so much.
Yeah, you can go, because what I just realised that I wanted to show people who Harry Tam is in case they're unaware, but you go first, my friend.
So this dude, business daddy, who has no experience in any of the areas that he's talking about. He's not experienced in law enforcement. He's not experienced in the social conditions that go into people... either going into or leaving gangs. He knows none of these things. He's lived in another country for so long and has just parachuted back in here and decides he knows how to solve gangs, a problem that literally no one has been able to solve for 50 years. But he thinks he can by being a tough man with an idea and no practicality about how it works. But the question that was asked of him was, is he pro-social interventions to stop people joining gangs? Yes, absolutely. That's a good-sounding thing, and I'm for the good-sounding thing. Okay, if you could speak to Harry Tam about what would stop people joining gangs, would you want to talk to him? No, because Harry Tam is a gang man, and I am anti-gang man. So you want to make these things up on basically just no information at all. You won't listen to social agencies. You won't listen to people that have an experience of that life. You won't talk to people that work in that area of society because you've already written them off as bottom feeders. So you're going to fix this problem by not talking to anyone and just wibbly wobbly wavy your CEO corporate wand. I've magicked it all better now.
So I contacted Harry today to see if he'd come on and have a chat with us. So this is Harry Tam. For over 40 years, Harry has worked with Indigenous ethnic gangs and other hard-to-reach communities throughout the country and in the prisons. In 1990, Harry was awarded the 1990s Commemoration Medal for services to New Zealand. Harry also worked as a senior public servant for nearly 20 years, providing policy advice to the government on a range of portfolios, including youth, penal, policy, and criminal justice. So that's who Harry Tam is, right? This group here, H2R, let me just read this out to you. H2R, this is the group that he's one of the people for, our people. We are now entering the fourth generation of gang whānau, with youth gangs comprised predominantly of children of gang members on the same pathway to poor outcomes in health, education, employment, criminal offending and well-being. The current approach of suppression to reduce gang membership and gang violence is not working, and there is a lack of targeted policies to provide social or economic support for gangs. Our approach is premised on the need to penetrate, engage and mobilise marginalised communities. We believe that no one is hard to reach if we really want to reach them. It depends on whether we intend to reach out and whether we are prepared to do things differently. We draw on the principles of community mobilisation initially used in the delivery of public health initiatives, which are designed to help communities build services and initiatives for themselves. We recognise that every community is unique, and we work with local leaders to develop solutions that address the issues that are important to them while drawing on their strengths and developing the capacity and capability to lead change for themselves. Now, Christopher Luxon doesn't want to have a bar of that person or this group because he promised in the election that he wouldn't do what Labour did and give money to the gangs. So he has now backed himself into a corner. He talks about local communities, helping local communities, getting into areas you can't get into. That's what this group is doing. That's who they are and what they're doing. But because he's made all this noise about Labor giving money to gangs and Labor working with gangs, will you meet with Harry Tam? No. But if you read what they're doing, it's exactly what you guys are trying to do. No, not my problem.
Bad gang man.
Yeah.
Me, anti-bad gang man.
So I also think as a business person who wants outcomes, shouldn't you therefore engage with the best, most likely way to get those outcomes? And I would think, look, I don't know Harry Tam, so I'm not kind of speaking on behalf of him, but I would think people in the kind of position who have lived the kind of life that Harry Tam has lived would be probably a better way through to that end goal that you want than some analyst in WINS who's had no real experience in that world. Or let's be honest, because it's Mr. Luxon, some Christian organisation in Whakatane who says they can do it better without the sweary words. So I just think that there's all these mixed messages. Luxon is already talking about running this country like a business. I am paraphrasing. He might not have specifically said that, but everything he's doing is like that. Yet I would think the best way to get the outcome you want is by engaging with people like Harry Tam, who he refuses to engage with. Because why? Because he's criticised Labor for engaging with people like Harry Tam. So now he can't do it, even if it was a good idea, Chewy.
Yeah. So he's going to go off. He's going to point the police at it. And that's his option. Nothing else.
So what if the police
even
say
if you
Harry
want to
Tam?
write the gangs off as an absolute mortal enemy of the country,
Yep.
there's a really important thing when you go into battle against someone is know your fucking enemy.
Yeah.
I have zero confidence that Luxon knows what goes into what has created and what continues to make gangs a viable option for people. That's the thing. A lot of these guys will know that it's a tough life. So they can look around and see that. Show people a better way out. These guys have kids that they care about as well.
Here's a really big question. So what if Luxon gets stuck in one of his dilemmas where the police go, oh, we'd really like to engage with Harry Tam? Then what does he do? Then does his head explode? Like, what if the police suggest the best way to do this is to engage with the kinds of groups you don't want to engage with, Mr. Luxon? Then what? I mean, I know we don't know if that's going to happen or not, but I would think the police officer on the ground might see these guys doing this work in the community already and say this is a good place to start putting some more effort. Then what? In fact, that would be a good question to ask police. Maybe I'll try and do that.
I know a lot of people will know the background in New Zealand gangs, especially where the mongrel mob came from. But ultimately, it came from Borstals. Yeah, that's the old-timey version of the fucking boot camp where these kids were brutalized and they were pushed on the outsides of society, so they formed their own society. Now, all I'm hearing is it might have a new marketing spin, but it's the same fucking thing again.
Well, you say it's the same fucking thing again. We were lucky enough to speak to a former Minister of Police, former National Party Minister, Chester Burrows, who sadly passed away. We didn't know this at the time, but when we spoke to Chester Burrows in June of last year, he was terminal with cancer and quite close to the end. Chester Burrows was the police minister and he was a local MP in Whanganui, whichever you like, when they tried last time, the national government, to ban gang patches. He came out saying some quite cutting things about Nationals' pledge to ban gang patches. So we talked to him about it. And whilst he's still National through and through, and I'm going to play 2 short clips. In the second clip, I think you hear me say, we're not here to slag National, because he was like, I don't want to just slam National. I'm like, fair enough. He was still very honest about what happened when they tried to ban gang patches last time. So, Mr. Luxon, how are you going to do now what couldn't be done then and didn't make any difference? Let's hear Chester talk to us 14, 15 months ago about about banning gang patches. See what he had to say.
Well, the idea of banning the gang patches came out of Whanganui itself through a local bill drafted by the Whanganui District Council. A local bill is always supported by the local MP, whether or not he agrees with it. But I thought that it was going to do some good, and so I was happy to support it. And it was an interesting situation, really, because you may recall that the mayor at the time was Michael Laws.
I do.
So quite a controversial figure, and so pushed it very hard, and it went through Parliament and was successful in being passed, but then fell to bits after that, and I guess there are 2 or 3 reasons for that. I think the first thing people want to say is, well, did it work? And the interesting thing is that it probably didn't, but it didn't have to, in that there weren't a whole lot of people wearing gang patches in every suburb or up the CBD every day in any event. So no one noticed a significant dropping off in the people wearing gang patches because they weren't actually there in any event. And what happened was that the Hells Angels took a court action seeking a declaratory judgment around the legality of the legislation, because the legislation had been written in a way that said a number of specified areas listed by the district council would be the centre of this legislation in which gang patches would be banned. So that was various parks, various reserves, sports grounds, all of that sort of stuff, which was fine. But it was by some quirk of fate, it was within the legislation to draw a line around the whole of the Wanganui city area, all the residential area, and say, well, we're going to ban them all within this line. And that was obviously never really the intent of the bill when it went through the parliamentary process, but that's the way it came out, because it basically said, well, wherever the council want to ban them, they can ban them as long as they put them on a schedule. So the Hells Angels went to court and said, well, hang on, surely this can't be legal. And the court had a look at it and all the discussion in Parliament around the bill and what it was supposed to do and where people were supposed to be banned from wearing patches and all of that sort of stuff, and said, that's right, it's not legal to do that in the way that it's been done by the council, and pretty much stuffed it. And
there you go. So the last time they tried to do this, Chewy, they got told by the courts it wasn't legal to do. I do want to play you one more clip. It's only a short bit. But Chester Burrows, the reason we got a hold of him, he was quoted in the media talking about, banning gang patches makes a good headline, but not good policy. So I just want to play this bit for you as well. I kind of have to say it for him because he doesn't say the exact headline, but just have a bit of a listen. One more. Is it 60 seconds? Yeah, 60 seconds. Having a look at what Mr. Burrows had to say about why National was doing this. And one of the comments that often came up was, what is a gang? And I remember that there was conversations around insignia on shirts, etc. And there was people saying, well, that could be a bowling club. If you follow that criteria, that could be a bowling club. And one wonders, and in the article that we talked about that you're quoted in, you state that we've agreed we're not bashing National here, so I'm not trying to do that, but I'm just trying to reflect this idea of banning gang patches as, quote, a big headline. In other words, it gets the media and the people talking, but it has a negligible impact on crime. That's what you're quoted to have said in the Stuff article.
I mean, as far as that sort of strategy or policy goes, it does have a negligible impact. And it could, of course, have a negative impact, because if everyone takes their patches off, you don't know who's who in the zoo.
Yeah.
So you don't need to take.
But it does make for good copy, is what you're saying. It makes good headlines in the newspaper. But just to also reflect on that. So there you go. That's all we're going to show from that for tonight. Chewy, thoughts?
These idiots never learn. Like, that's my thoughts. I was just looking for a photo, right? Because this has been a problem for decades, and there is not a single approach that has ever stopped it. This is a photo from where I grew up from. This is Timaru.
Yeah.
That's the Devil's Henchman riding through town. Now, you could get the same thing happen today in New Zealand. There are, by my count, I think about 33 main gangs in New Zealand. There's, I think it's under 10,000 gang members. I think rightly Mongrel Mob gets the majority of the press. Now, you tell me what would be involved. Say this was a Mongrel Mob tangi procession on the East Coast somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, the police know. Well, the police have usually been notified that there's something happening, right? They'll know. They've got intelligence. Or even the Mongrel Mob just came out and said, we're doing a tangi through town. You know, just as a courtesy type thing, we're going to let you know. Now, they know that the government wants to crack down on these sort of things of what they're wearing, so they don't tell the cops anymore.
Yep. They
keep it secret. And then the cops have to decide how they're going to enforce this.
And how many cops are on duty? How many cops are on duty in Timaru? Maybe 2, 3?
How do you take the patches off these guys?
Yeah.
How do you break up a funeral procession that you had no advance warning about? You used to have warning, now you don't. Like, these are the things that Luxon hasn't thought about because he doesn't want to.
Mm.
Because the problem that they wanted to solve is not gangs. The problem that they wanted to solve is that we're not in government.
To get elected.
So now they've solved that problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
The next problem is 3 years down the line. They've got to get enough notable wins on the board in 3 years so they can solve this problem again.
Completely, 100%, absolutely, I'm on your side. I think Chewy for president. My only concern about this whole thing is that there seems to be a rebellion going on in the chat right now, and people are talking about starting our own gang, and I don't endorse that. Although, if people do want to be in the bottom feeder gang, is that smooth? There is actually a way you could do that, and that's simply to visit bhnshop.nz, because you've only got a week or so to get the bottom feeder merch. It'll be there tonight, tomorrow night, and then through till next Thursday, and then that'll be it. So people in the chat are talking about, having a bottom feeder gang. You can. Will this patch here get banned at some stage? Probably.
As Chester was saying, right? It depends on how they're going to have to define what is gang regalia, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't see how, however they want to justify it, like they are either going to have to name these organizations in a way that they can't just change the name. They are going to have to define what is gang regalia and how far is that going to go? Like, is that going to go down to a certain color of hoodie or bandana or footwear or whatever? But I can't see a way that they are not going to get Brian Tamaki's little pretend motorcycle gang.
Mm-hmm.
Because they use exactly the same regalia. They look like a motorcycle gang. They act like a motorcycle gang, but apparently they're a church group.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I'm not with you. People are congratulating me on my pitch. Good pitch, bad. Thanks, Sean. I already know, and I think without saying it'll work, the way around it is they just have to identify a criminal entity. They have to have that word somewhere. But then again, what happens, let's say what happens if, and let's not say Destiny, but let's say what happens if a church group then was to commit some kind of finance fraud. Would they be a criminal entity, and would that patch then be banned? That's probably more of a question to ask. Like if it's a Rotary club and the Rotary club was to commit some kind of fraud, they'd be a criminal entity, would they be banned? So that's I know I'm getting into the nuts and bolts of it, but in a court of law, that's the thing. Going into a court of law, Chewy, you said before, the Mongrel Mob have got lawyers too. Actually, it's kind of bigger than that, because whether we like it or not, the Mongrel Mob members have rights too.
Would you say that they have free speech? Are we going to see the free speech unions stick up for them?
There you go.
For some reason, I don't think they will.
It's crazy, eh? Freedom of assembly. They have rights as well. And in the court of law, it's going to be quite difficult to say this group of people will be removed, these rights will be removed from these group of people and not these. Now, it's not impossible. We saw that during COVID, right? For some people making choices, they lost some rights. So it is possible, but I don't think it's as easy as Luxon selling it. Put it that way.
You know, this is okay. Do not complete the gaps on what I am.
I feel a tangent
suggesting here. Okay, so don't do this, people. Don't do this. Definitely don't go to AliExpress. Definitely do not look into the range of Mongrel Mob merch that you can buy through AliExpress. There's some lovely throw pillows. Yeah, absolutely. I've got to say, I can't see the hot pink Mongrel Mob Aotearoa t-shirt taking off.
Maybe that's for the LGBT members of the Mongrel Mob. I don't
know. I think they might choose a different color. But there are some lovely throw pillows. You can actually get the back patches and stuff from AliExpress. It's mental.
That's another interesting point. So what if you're watching Mongrel Mob, I'm not going to encroach on your turf here, but what if as a protest, a gang allowed a whole bunch of people who weren't criminals or weren't part of their gang to wear their patches? What if like that Mongrel Mob patch became a fashion accessory? You know, I know it's not that, and I know it means something to the people, and you have to be a part of them, and no one's going to wear one of those patches if they aren't a part of it. But what happens if the gang went, hey, you know what? Let's just let everybody who wants to wear this. Then what? Then you're not banning gang packs. You're banning a piece of fashion that a gang member may not, a non-gang member may wear. I mean, like, I've seen people in New Zealand wearing Bloods and Crips gear because I think they're from South Central Los Angeles. I guarantee they're not members of Bloods or Crips. I'm just saying.
What?
I'm not,
look, hang on. What a new and exciting way you've discovered to get stabbed in an
I'm not suggesting anyone should wear a gang paraphernalia who's not part of that gang. Don't put yourself potentially in harm's way. But I'm saying if a gang wanted to be smart and go, well, let's test this and give away 10,000 T-shirts with our emblem on it to people who aren't in our gang. I wonder what the police would do. I wonder what the government would do. Just thinking.
I know some people that have had some probably pretty intense conversations for wearing. You remember that show, Sons of Anarchy?
Yeah. Loved it.
Yeah, so I know of people that have had some pretty interesting conversations with gang members over the Sons of Anarchy merch that they're wearing at the time. So do not do that.
No, don't do it. I'm just asking the question more broadly in case you're watching, Harry. If a gang decided to allow some non-gang members to wear their merchandise, their labeling, their patches, primarily as a protest, what would happen then? It's hypothetical. Don't do it. Someone's also said, and I have to look over here, sorry, because this is where my TikTok is. It's already gone through too quick. But someone just said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to give you credit, or am I? Am I going to find you? That what happens if they rebrand? That's the other thing as well. It's a message from TikTok. We've just been removed off TikTok again. Violent and hateful organizations and individuals is a violation. Good Lord.
You heard it there first. We are forming that gang, apparently.
Maybe
TikTok think we are. Wow, their algorithm's really cooked.
Yeah. There is no place on our platform for beliefs or propaganda that encourage violence or hate. We do not allow the presence of violent or hate organizations or individuals on our platform. Often the ideas of these actors are amplified by others. We do not allow anyone to promote or materially support violent or hateful actors.
Look, we're not supporting the National Party. We're just talking about them.
I don't think TikTok's our place for live streaming. I don't think that's going to happen. All right, team. Let's move on to that. Speaking of violent and hateful, let's have a look at. I don't know where I was going with that link. I was going to make some kind of joke about these people, but I won't. Working group last night had a really interesting interaction between Matthew Hooton. I think it'd be fair to call him a right-wing pundit and a consultant to many on the right. I think he was with Wayne Brown for a while, and he may have been a part, or he's advised some National Party MPs, I think, along the way, but various bits and bobs. They were talking about the National Party and the election's over and what happens now for the right. And one of the things he had said to Seymour, which I think is fascinating, is basically Nationals not smart, they'll do nothing, and they'll fuck you over. And he used that word. Let me play you this clip with Matthew Hooton talking
to Nationals guy.
Yeah, well,
why does
you have
he
a listen.
Always sound like he's not.
Doesn't sound like he's very much of a Nationals guy, but let's have a look. Here we go.
Yeah, and what's going to happen is either National will fuck you quickly or they'll fuck you over slowly. And they are not a party.
You're such a charming man.
They are not a party that is going to deliver the types of change that you and me and people and at least three of us in this room. In fact, in a way, 4 in terms of the degree of the change sort.
He wants change. He just wants it to be centrally planned.
There's no way.
Exactly.
The National Party, in its current formation under its 2003 Constitution, it doesn't exist for that purpose. It exists to stay in power and deliver corporate welfare to its donors.
Matthew,
hold on.
Did you hear that?
Wow.
Shall I play it again?
Hooton.
Matthew Hooton, here we go.
Fuck you quickly or they'll fuck you over slowly. And they are not a party.
You're such a charming man.
They are not a party that is going to deliver the types of change that
they're not going to deliver change.
Me and people and at least three of us in this room. In fact, in a way, 4 in terms of the degree of the change sort.
He wants change. He just wants it to be centrally planned.
There's no way.
Exactly.
The National
Five-year
Party,
plan.
in its current formation under its 2003 Constitution, it doesn't exist for that purpose. It exists to stay in power and deliver corporate welfare to its donors.
Corporate welfare to its donors, Chewie.
Wow.
There's another couple of minutes to go, but is there anything you'd like to comment on so far?
Yeah, look, I've made a joke about Hooton being a Labor plant for years because he keeps on promoting some of the worst people to leadership positions. And am I right? Like he's right. He's singing from my songbook, but he's a national pundit. He's a national campaign advisor. But that sounds like either a very truthful or a very bitter man right there.
Or it could be both. And can I tell you, it gets worse. Now, what actually happens next is Bomber wants to move on to the next part of the conversation, but they keep talking and they can't get away from it. And he's not finished with his criticisms of National.
Matthew,
hold on. Either you agree to support that, which I don't think you'll want to, or they'll pretend they're keen on change and then they'll slide on it. But these are not people who have what it takes to deliver change in terms of leading the public service, working with the public service, knowing basic facts about the New Zealand economy, being able to spell their own names. They're not people like that.
Okay,
and so
I think they can spell their own names.
And so what will happen is
they get them on cards at the select committee.
So what will happen is, and they will start to worry about.
Look, you see Bomber, how much Bomber's laughing? He's just cackling in the corner. It's hilarious.
Was there only just one? They will start to worry about the next election. They probably already have.
Sure.
An act saying it wants change, they will find a way to placate but not deliver.
Yeah.
And I think this is a big dilemma for
all right. No,
that would be damaging.
I want to push back on that, even if as unrealistically optimistic. In private conversations.
Okay, I was too. As David said, they can spell their names. He didn't challenge me on any of the other things.
In private conversations, a number of national
just
parties.
like John Key. Oh yes, there'll be change. That's what he told all the investment bankers when he was meeting with them.
So it's
how many years does it take? There's been 9 years of national government.
So one of the conversations I've had with a number of national party units.
So
phenomenal.
He's over National, like many leftists are over Labor. I mean, that's what you hear.
Yeah.
Right? All the leftists that are like, fuck Labor, they did nothing. They had a mandate, they could have done whatever they want, and they did nothing. This is the opposing right side person in politics being over National and obviously moving away from them.
Yep. That's exactly it. That's what it sounds like.
Yep. Yes. I'll play a bit more.
Is that they are of the view that they completely bottled the John Key years. It was a complete lost opportunity.
Sure.
And
each of those elections they won by 50,000 votes.
And it's entirely
now
possible
we've got John Key
that
too.
Of course these SABs are just blowing smoke up my ass to
well, they're less intelligent than the people in the Key government.
But I mean, I want to believe.
Oh, good.
in face of the overwhelming evidence in front of me.
No, I think that's good. I
want
some people believe in Tanifars under
I want to believe. I
think Parliament's actually legislated that there's Tanifars in certain places.
Whereas you believe, so you want to believe.
You want to believe in the National
I'm
Party.
not saying that I do, Matthew. I'm saying that I want to believe that there are people inside National who do have a genuine desire to do something.
Yes, sure.
And my hope is that ACT will give them the excuse to do some of the things that they actually want to do.
And frankly, the impetus and the policies. If you look at one thing we can't be accused of is not having the ideas. Look, I accept what Matthew's saying, and there's a reason I'm not a Nat. I'm an ACT. But this time is different in that you've got a much more substantial coalition partner with a much clearer agenda than any other time they've been in power.
New Zealand first.
Era. I tell you what, I'll do the jokes, mate.
Why? You're shit at them.
So, yep, I accept what Matthew says. I might not have put it that way with my
you're more
new coalition partner. Yeah. But, ACT, the reason I'm an ACT, the reason I'm proud people voted for ACT is that we've got a chance to make this change real, and that's what we're going to do.
There you go, Chewy. That's the clip I wanted to play you of Matthew Hooton. Should we just put it this way? Tearing National
amazing.
And Christopher Luxon a new one.
That is amazing. Did they fucking just put a bag over his head for the last 4 weeks?
Don't know.
Like, where was that?
Yeah. Well, like everyone knows that he doesn't. Everyone knows that he doesn't rate Luxon. He's been pretty overt with his dislike of Luxon, but to basically say what he literally said, they're either going to fuck you quickly or they'll fuck you over slowly. That's what he said to Seymour about getting into coalition with National. You can't, and saying that Key's government was smarter, these guys would get nothing done, the last guy's got nothing done. So what I hear is someone who sits in that part of the political sphere, as I said before, who is over National, like many on the left are over Labour. He's just got a platform and a vocabulary to voice it very clearly.
Yeah, look, I think he's nailed something that I've thought of as well. I think National have got dumber. Like, I can disagree with them in ideological terms and that sort of thing, but you can be diametrically opposed from what I say and still be a competent politician, a competent MP. You're just going about things differently from how I do it. I think that the National Party has filled itself up with ideologues, and we've spoken about this, the evangelical core of National. I don't think they're necessarily that smart.
Yeah,
I think they're heavily compromised in that degree. Like, I mean, we've shown someone there that is, the interview that we played before was someone that was obviously right up until the end still very much in National's camp, but could objectively stand back and go, this is what we did and it didn't work. Like, that's integrity, right? That's,
well, it is funny how often
intellectual
people on the right,
honesty.
Well, it's funny how people on the right, you see it in Republicans quite a lot, find their integrity when they're heading out the door, either from politics or maybe
they should do it earlier.
Rest in peace, Burrows at the end of his life. But so many of those people who weren't looking for re-election in America spoke out against Trump, but they wouldn't do it when they were in the Senate or in Congress or in the inner circle. But as soon as they got out of it or they were on their way out, all of a sudden they got their morals back again.
Yeah. And look, I'll be honest, any side of this political argument or any party can be vulnerable to the same thing, right? It's people that will stand up for what they believe is right, whether it's in the interests of the party or whatever. You can't have a party made of just yes men. But as a leader, those people can be really dangerous, because what if they're calling you on your bullshit and they want you gone? So you surround yourself with yes men, and then we've elected a party of jellyfish.
Yep.
So I mean, I'm stoked to hear that Hooton's really pissed off about the direction of the party that he's been part of and he supports.
Yep.
I get that. That he sounds like he's the person that I was talking to pre-election of national phoning this in. And if you're a national supporter, you should be pissed off about this. I think I've been talking to Matthew Hooton for a month and a half.
Hey, we won't touch on this tonight because I don't want Chewie to actually have a heart attack before the end of the night. But I don't know if this is confirmed yet, but there are reports coming out that Chris Bishop, the Bish, as we call him,
the Bish,
has basically said Three Waters is now going to happen just without co-governance. So all of that hyperbole about the costs of it, et cetera, going out the window. There are reports today in a couple of places, so I'm sure by tomorrow we'll know more about it. And I was going to tie it into Bombers thing tonight, but we won't. We'll touch on it tomorrow. That National, after telling you all about this spending and all this kind of stuff and how terrible Three Waters was, it now may go through with Three Waters. We'll have more on that tomorrow.
So it's going through, but just without Māori input.
Yeah, which will be against the...
more of the same.
Well, no, which actually will be a violation of the Treaty of Waitangi, and it'll go to the tribunal, and it'll end up then being cancelled. All Māori will be included back into it, and it'll be exactly what Labour said it would be, and National will put it through. It's a bit like, we know this, Chewie. All of those Dunedin mayors who rallied against the one-way system, who rallied against all the, all the renovations being done to George Street, which for people who don't know is kind of the main road on the northern side of the Octagon that goes to the Octagon. They were all there cutting the ribbon happily when it opened up. But they all rallied against it
quite good,
beforehand.
doesn't it?
It's fucking awesome. But they all rallied against it. They all didn't want to have a bar. They all said it was a waste of money. Then once they were into the new season of being council, they were all there cutting the ribbon, happily toasting the great new look that Dunedin had. Same sort of thing. All right. Hey, listen. Let's have a look at this. It's a very important story. It's also a tragic story, and obviously this is not going to be the one that we kind of kid around and joke around with, because there has been some 111 calls released today from the Prime Minister's office to 111 because they got a heads up of the mosque tragedy 7 minutes before it happened. Now, there are going to be some who try and use this as a criticism. Why don't we just play the story first of all, then we can talk about it at the end. I've got a couple of thoughts around it. Here we go.
Tēnā tātou katoa, good evening. The inquest into the March 15th terror attack has today heard the 111 call made by a parliamentary staffer. The Prime Minister's office was alerted to the impending attack by the terrorist himself, receiving a detailed email 7 minutes before the first shots were fired.
The staffer gave the 111 operator Brenton Tarrant's name and the locations of the planned attacks, but said it was probably just a crank or a nutter who sent the email, and police didn't dispatch anyone initially. Juliet Speedy reports.
An email sent to Parliament by the Australian terrorist was received at 1:33 p.m. on March 15. 7 minutes later, at the exact time the first shot was fired at Al Noor Mosque, a parliamentary staffer thought he'd better call 111.
It appears to be indicating someone claiming that they've carried out an attack in Christchurch or planning an attack in Christchurch from a person by the name of Brenton, last name Tarrant.
During this call, Tarrant was arriving at Al...
I have to have a question about the framing that the news story is. Like, it's like they're framing it. We talked about this earlier with Gaza. They're framing it, News Hub, is that there was a 7-minute delay in them calling the police. This is an email that's gone to a generic box in the Prime Minister's office. I'm unbelievably surprised that anyone even saw it within 7 minutes, let alone actioned it. That's how I feel. Now, I'm not trying to defend the actions. There are going to be some things to change. But the way the story is set up is like, 7 minutes they waited and then they put the call through to 111. It's like I said, I've got 10,000 unread emails in my inbox. Imagine what the Prime Minister's inbox gets every single day, just that's open to the general public. I just wanted to state that, but we'll get to the end of the story as well.
Al Noor Mosque to commit mass murder.
It was originally aimed at Dunedin, but now it's aimed at the Lingwood Mosque.
And Christchurch and Ashburton.
So at this time, Parliament and now police had the name and age of the terrorist, where he was from, his planned attacks, the locations of them, and his reasons for doing it. But the staffer also told the 111 operator he was probably a crank and a nutter, saying...
And this is actually irrelevant because this is perhaps where the police fell down. It doesn't matter if the person from the Prime Minister's office said it's probably a crank. That's actually the police's job to take more seriously. The police don't take advice from the public servant, the police action a threat. You know what I'm saying? Because again, I don't know if this is fair or not, but the news media is selling this, that because he said it was a nutter, the police didn't take it very seriously. I think that's where there's a fault and a failing. Yep. You keep listening. That's pretty much what they say.
And it will be a nutter, I'm sure.
You can see a motivation, which is white supremacy, and you're drawing conclusions that, of course, just a nutter, and it will be a nutter, I'm sure. What do you have to say about that?
I've drawn some very quick conclusions, but still have those concerns that I felt needed to be reported through the police.
Is there training for terrorist threats for your organisation and the job that you're in?
Not specifically, because not for a terrorist threat as such.
Is there anything that stands out to you as something that you would have done differently now?
No, not at all. I don't know what more we could have done.
This answer provoked audible reaction from families in the public gallery. Other 111 calls started to come in from the public at the same time as this phone call. But this nearly 12-minute call ended with the 111 caller making it a priority 2 event. That is not urgent, and it ultimately ended in no one being dispatched and the event being closed.
The suggestion made by the caller that the email could possibly be a hoax, for this to have influenced the decision of the communicator as to the priority coding.
A phone call made with no idea of the murderous terror unfolding at the same time.
Well, Juliet, the coroner may recommend changes as a result of this inquest, but have any changes been made already as a result of this?
Yes, Sam, as far as the police are concerned, an inspector told the court today that a number of changes have been made since March 15, 2019, including better training and education for those police communicators and upskilling around terrorism and hate crime. And most importantly, all national security events are now, by matter of course, marked as a priority 1, P1, not P2, as happened in the phone call you just heard in my story there. But interestingly, the parliamentary staffer in that phone call told the court today that as far as he is aware, no major policy changes or changes to protocol have been made at Parliament in the way they would act if a similar threat was emailed in today.
So there's a correction there. And it seems to me, Chewy, to be like there's a big piece of information that we're missing here. And I'm not defending anyone here. I'm just thinking about the circumstances. So, for example, in America, I know it's America, it's not New Zealand, but there are 30 death threats to the president every single day. I wonder how many emails the Prime Minister's office gets like this, let's say each month, because we're only 1/70th the size of America, you know, of threats for violence, threat for harm, threats for attacks. If they get 10 a day, so this person's dealt with 200 of them in the last 20 days, and that's going to be too much. Let's say they get 1 a day, and they dealt with 300 of them in the last year, and every single one of those has been a hoax. They probably still phoned them through. They probably said, yeah, it's a hoax, but that then comes on to the police dispatch to figure out whether it needs to be treated more seriously or not. So I understand how the family has an audible kind of gasp when the person from the Prime Minister's office has said, I don't think I'd do anything differently, but I can understand that. Within 7 minutes of probably getting an email that goes to an inbox of, who knows, 500 emails an hour. Yeah. They'd phoned it through to the police. Then it's on to the police to decide what happens from there. So I'm not defending him, and I'm not trying to minimize the situation, but it seems that as soon as they knew, they passed on the information, and then the police need to make the decision after that. That's what I was sort of thinking.
Yeah. Like, I think Peter here in the chat has got it. You don't call 111 if you don't have a reason to. I think he was expressing a natural hope or denial.
But either way, that they should decide.
You know, exactly.
Like if you said to a homeowner, oh, there's a small fire in the front yard of your property. I think it's going to be fine though. It's just little. You know, I don't think there's a problem. It's just a little fire in your front yard. I think it's probably okay. And then your house burns down. I think that's probably on the homeowner to go, well, I'm calling the fire department. You know, I'm going to just be safe than be sorry. So that then also makes me think again, how many calls or emails do they get like this every single day that might have led them to take it into a code 2, which from now on they definitely won't, obviously.
Yeah. And the shooter knew that what he was doing. he didn't send that email to get caught. You know, it wasn't like, oh, here's the way to stop me. You know, I find it interesting that that staff have said that they don't have any specific training around this sort of thing. Like,
yeah.
I find that surprising. Like, I mean, I work a very different job, but I know that my workplace has a procedure for dealing with bomb threats and threats over the phone and that sort of thing. That's the only part of the story that I'm having trouble with. Well, that you can't tell me the person that looks at the Prime Minister's office's email doesn't know how to deal with a threat out of nowhere.
Yeah, but he did say not specifically terrorist. I'm sure they've got training for some things. The call did say something about not specifically terrorist. Ricky says as well, except at the PM's office have intelligence analysts to give advice on this stuff. Yeah, and I think that's, again, if that's a part of it, but I wonder if this person, like you've just said, Chewy, they might have two people in the office that just go through the emails. Like they might be there holding. I've emailed the Prime Minister's office probably 20 or 30 times. I do every time I'm looking for a request for an interview. You know, and I'm not much of a nutter. You know, imagine how many emails I actually get every single day. Maybe there's a person or two who just answer emails and forward them to the right person, and their job is to go, okay, what we should do with this. Maybe they check in with their boss and they call 111. And then it's in the police's hands. You know, that your job is to report, the police's job is to engage and decide. So if there's a failing, which there obviously is, it's going to be in the police. However, the other thing is, it was 7 minutes. So as the call went through to the police, Brenton Tarrant was walking through the front door of the mosque. Now, more calls started coming in as well. They said that in the article, more 111 calls started coming through as well. So why that was then marked priority 2, because they said it was a 12-minute call, and they called them as the gunman was walking in, which means it was for the first 12 minutes of the attack, right? So surely they would have had confirming texts or emails or whatever from other people that would have again stopped it from being coded level 2. That seems to be the failing.
Yeah. I mean, I am disappointed in the framing of this. Like, it's a laser focus on one particular event of something that happened all at once. And when you zoom in on something, sometimes you lose the big picture. I would commend this guy for not minimizing it to the point of like, I'm sure this is nothing. I'm not going to do anything about it. Something told him to ring 111. It was absolutely the right thing to do.
Yep. And I mean, he might have got the email and he might have checked with his manager going, because like if they get 10 of them a day, and the manager might have gone, yeah, you should probably phone that through. You know, I don't want to sound sort of heartless or flippant. I'm not trying to do that to make it sound like, he's got nothing to do with it. But I think the media is like, oh my God, there was a 7-minute delay in calling the police. It's like, shit. I mean, most of the time when an emergency happens, if you see someone get run over in town, or I've never had that, but I'm assuming it's going to take 2, 3 or 4 minutes to get through to 111. This is 7 minutes from an email through to the police. I mean, failure on the police for not getting someone out there immediately, you know. But remember, the call also went through as the person entered the building. So would the police have been there 3 minutes sooner, 4 minutes sooner? What would that have done? I guess that's all part of the inquiry. And where does the blame lay for that? I don't know. I'm not going to comment on that because that's what they're doing. But yeah, it's pretty.
I tell you what I'm hoping is covered in this inquiry, and I have no visibility on to what they're looking at or anything. But I think the police's response on the day and how quick they captured him was phenomenal. Like the story of the guys that apprehended the shooter. Amazing. That this guy's done his part by reporting something that he felt that wasn't right, and this might be belaboring a point or whatever, but this wasn't an email going, my name is such and such, and I am going to do this at this date. The dude emailed his manifesto to the Prime Minister's office. So I don't know how much this guy would have read before going, oh, this is fucked, I'm calling 111.
Yeah, and for Miko here is also, here's one thing as well. This has come out, this is in the New Zealand Herald if you want to look it up. Winston is on, you're calling it X for Miko, it's Twitter. Anyway, saying something about Jacinda not being transparent with this whole thing, and he was never told about the email and I don't know. Even the Herald said it's a bizarre outburst by Winston Peters, but he's trying to lay the blame for this.
Just in case you need something to just underline that Winston Peters is an utter piece of shit. Like there you go. What I want to see covered in this inquiry is the security and intelligence apparatus of New Zealand for years minimizing the threat that white supremacy has in this country. You know, I think there is going back years and years and years, minimization. These guys are kooks, they're weirdos, they dress up as the SS, there's no problems. They're just clowns, because some of them are clowns. Follow them for years. Some of them are clowns.
Yeah.
But all it takes is a couple of clowns cheering on someone like the Christchurch shooter to actually do something, and then you see what can happen.
And then the disgusting outburst from some people. I mean, you know, I can't remember the guy's name. It doesn't matter. But there was a young MP in waiting for ACT who then also made a speech in Parliament about gun rights based on what happened there. I'm sure people can find it and look it up for themselves. I can't remember what the guy's name is, but a young ACT guy who was just telling all the other young MPs who were in there, this is like the student MPs, that, you know, Labour bad for banning guns. That was his position then. You can look him up yourself. I'm not sure who the guy was, but that kind of narrative then came out from a certain. And then you've got David Seymour obviously talking about wanting to reinstate all those good gun owners the rights to have bloody machine guns or whatever it is. Shocking.
Yeah, people that put their sport and their hobby above victims or preventing a single thing. Like a big supporter of the show here, Kookie is a shooter and a firearms owner that I've known for many, many years. And, you know, I'm going to put words in your mouth, Kookie, but I know your feelings when this came up with the firearms that you had. They had to go in the wake of this. That is a responsible gun owner. Like someone who can see that and make their own decision rather than, you know, they're always law-abiding gun owners, but now there's this section of the law-abiding gun owners that really don't want to abide by the law. So, yeah.
Got one more thing to play, but first, thanks to Kookie and Nick, and we're just talking about for the super chat, encouraging people to hit that like button. Hit that like button, people. Hit that like button. There's one other part I want to play for you of this. It's completely a side note to it, but it's our friends over at Counterspin Media, Cookerspin Media. This is from the lovely Calvin Morgan's
Meat Spin.
This is from Calvin Morgan's Twitter feed. I saw this today. These guys were up on charges for, you know, I can't think of the exact term, objectionable material. That's right, for sharing or spreading, whatever the correct term is, objectionable material. And for some reason, they've decided to admit to every single crime that they've done as a part of what, well, I guess I should say allegedly. It appears that they've allegedly admitted to an alleged crime that they've been charged with. If you just have a look at what they've had to say about this all.
We're talking about sharing a link.
And that's all it was. See, a lot of people think we shared the video. We didn't. We shared a link to a foreign website in the UK that was undertaking a documentary investigation into the incident at Christchurch. Now, for the record, Counterspin Media has been investigating this over time as well. The official narrative, we can tell you now, is bullshit. It does not make sense. It does not stack up. Neither do timelines, neither do other extra players that were never brought out into the public eye. This is government false flag all over it. Now, remember,
everything's a false flag, Pat. Remember, everything's a false flag.
Yep. And, you know, he's just admitted to sharing that link, and that link led people to objectionable material.
People it's attributed to are the wrong people. I mean, there's three Tarrants. There's three Tarrants they've done inadvertently by charging us.
Anyway, that's enough of him. I just thought I'd share with you. It's funny when people are charged with a crime and then they go on their broadcast and they admit to
filming our crime spree was the best idea we ever had.
Yeah. Anyway.
Dumbasses.
All right, folks. I think we're done for tonight. Is there anything else you want to share?
Nothing that I can particularly think of.
I don't think we're going to be live streaming our show on TikTok. I just don't think TikTok has a sympathetic enough algorithm to understand the difference between talking about something and broadcasting that thing, talking about gangs, talking about gang patches, and being a patched gang member kind of selling your wares. So I don't think we're going to be back on TikTok doing live streams. I'm actually going to, I know Uncle Tix well enough to fire him a few text messages. People know Uncle Tix. He's got a couple of million followers on TikTok. He's a good dude. I might fire him a text. If I can get a hold of, a contact at TikTok, maybe we can talk it through. We need to be white labeled or white flagged in some way to say we're a news organisation and we're talking news of the day, and stop bloody getting us taken down. But we'll see what happens. But we are still on TikTok and we still share things. We put up a couple of clips today. They've had about 4,000 or 5,000 views each. If you want to check us out there, just under mine, Pat Britton. Yep, nearly 5,000. We had about 7,000 views on TikTok today. You can get us just under the deal, under the Chiron, under the name, the handle at Pat Britton, same as Twitter. Chewy's off Twitter because he's a big blouse. But anyway.
I don't support misinformation and white supremacy, Pat.
All right, fair enough.
That's what Twitter is.
Yeah, I pay for it, so I'm part of the problem.
Yeah, you paid money into it. I know
I'm
why
part
you
of the
did
problem.
it, but I still judge.
All right, guys, just a reminder one more time, not that you need it, because I know you love us. If you want to be a part of what we do, bottom feeder gear. We've been talking about bottom feeder. That's apparently this is BHN's new gang insignia, or maybe it's this stuff here. bhnshop.nz if you want to get involved, and would love to have you on board with some of that stuff. There'll be a new run done on Friday. Well, a new order put in on Friday morning. I messaged my guy today to find out what's happening with last week's orders. I'll give you a heads up tomorrow night. And we'll be back tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, Thursday night, of course, remember we open up Discord. Love having your views and your thoughts around it. Also, and I know Chewy will roll his eyes when I say this, but a big news story for this weekend for New Zealand, whether Chewy likes it or not, is the final of the Rugby World Cup. So a guy called Nigel Yeldon. Nigel is a gentleman who is a sports broadcaster. I used to work with him at ZB. He's done a lot of that, and he now calls rugby on Sky Sport, does some of the local ITM stuff. He's going to join us. Well, he's going to join us in a pre-record to talk about the game this weekend. That'll be up for tomorrow night as well. And we might have a look to see if the Bish indeed wants to go through with Three Waters. And I've got a couple of phone calls in. Professor Tom Roa from Waikato University, who we've had on a few times before. I put a call into him today to come to talk to us about the ACT Party referendum and what that would mean for Māori, and more. So that's us for now, eh?
Yeah, sounds good, man.
Love you all to bits, and we'll catch you tomorrow night from 9 p.m. for another edition of Big Hearing News.
Big Hearing News.
Big Hearing News. All right.
News.
News. See ya. Bye.
Cheers, fam.